Party people, welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week, I am joined by Alex Flanigan for a game of In the Air Tonight. Alex is one of the hosts of The Cryptid Keeper, a podcast in which she and co-host Addison Peacock every week explore a different cryptid, its history, its sightings, various bits of lore around it. She is also a part of A Horror Borealis, a Monster of the Week actual play podcast presented by The Cryptid Keeper on the One Shot Podcast Network. As well as a game designer whose works include Coffee Detective and a myriad of other cool games. You can find more about Alex at therealalexflanigan.com or on Twitter at Coffee Detective, that's COFF33 Detective. In the Air Tonight, by friend of the show and previous guest Austin Ramsey, is a two-player role-playing game about two people on their way to do something ethically dubious, undeniably dangerous, and almost certainly life-changing. It uses interpretive questions and answers, or it can be used with Sacha Renault's Spindle Wheel cards to tell this story inspired by the first episode of Miami Vice, in which Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas drive through the streets on their way to a climactic showdown. And it specifically aims to capture a sense of looming dread and oncoming action. It is very cool. I loved playing it, and I can't wait for you to hear it. You can find more information about In the Air Tonight in the show notes. Real quick before we dive in, one quick note to remind you that the Audioverse Awards voting is currently live. You can find a link to the show notes. It would mean a lot to us if you could vote for Party of One for Best Improvised Production, and for me for Best Player Director in an Improvised Production. There's also a ton of other shows that I love, shows on the One Shot Network, A Horror Borealis, which Alex was a part of, all of which are nominated. It is ranked voting, so you can literally go and vote for all of them. It would mean a lot. Go, check it out, find a link in the show notes, vote for us, help us win this prestigious honor that would mean a lot to me personally. And on that note, let's go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week, I am sitting down with Alex Flanigan. Alex, thank you so dang much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. It's something I've sort of been secretly hoping for a while, so really love it.
Well, and this is a thing that happens sometimes, that I'm gonna peel back this curtain just a little bit, where there are regularly people with whom I'm like, oh, I really want to invite them on the show, and then I finally do it, and I hear that exact thing, and I'm like, I should have done this 6 months ago. That feels like the right time to have done that.
Well, 6 months ago might have been a little bit ambitious. I've recently gone through so many huge sweeping life changes, so now is actually super good timing.
All right. Well, then everything has worked out perfectly. I'm very pleased with that. So,
yeah.
Real quick at the top of the show, why don't you take a moment and let the lovely listeners at home know about all of the cool things that you're working on that you might want them to know about?
Oh, man. So I do several things. I have a real live human day job now, so I'm not spending as much time on any of these projects, which is a little bit unfortunate. It is nice to have a paycheck. It's nice to finally have health insurance after several years. But at the same time, I've lost a lot of my prime podcasting hours. But
God, I do know that feeling very, very, very well.
Yeah, right. Very intimately. But anyway, you can still find me on the Cryptid Keeper podcast, which is probably my most popular project to date. That's a show that I do with Addison Peacock, my co-host, and we basically talk about a different folkloric or mythological creature every week. We sort of do a deep dive into the potential biology behind them, as well as sort of their cultural context, but mostly we just sort of improv for an hour, and it's a lot of fun. And then as sort of a spin-off of that, I have a show on the One Shot Network called A Horror Borealis, which is an actual play Monster of the Week campaign, which is so much fun. And then I have done a little bit of game designing. The only one that people might have heard of is Coffee Detective, which was recently featured on One Shot, so that was a really, really fun experience for me, to sort of designing a game from the ground up and putting it out there and getting enough of a response that I felt encouraged to start making sillier games.
I know that feeling. It's a wonderful feeling, and also it's a wonderful game, and those are wonderful podcasts. So it's
hey, thanks.
They're good. Alex? They're good.
Yeah? They're good.
They're good. So this week we are playing a little game called In the Air Tonight by Austin Ramsey, inspired by the iconic scene from TV's classic Miami Vice. It is a game about two partners on the road to do something dubious and definitely dangerous. We are going to flesh out who we are, where we're going, all of those kind of details as we're laying things out. We're going to kind of piece all of those things together. The way the game is played is we're going to be asking each other, like, questions. The game has a series of questions. We play by answering all of these questions. We can do this just off the cuff, and obviously if we kind of have an answer, we can sort of just throw it out there. We don't have to rely on cards, but the game is designed to also be played with Spindle Wheel cards. Spindle Wheel is a game that we've played before on the show. It is a extremely cool deck of tarot-esque storytelling cards that are my jam. So I've got my deck in front of me, so we're going to be kind of going back and forth, answering some questions, drawing some cards, interpreting things, and we'll kind of see where we go. Now,
I definitely want to give full credit to you for choosing this game, because I know when you asked me sort of what kind of games I'm interested in playing, and I gave you this very vague answer about well, I like anything, but sort of specifically I like this kind of very abstract game, but I don't really know, and there's this other thing that I'm kind of into, and then you just somehow spun all of that into here's a perfect detective game that was literally written for you. So congrats.
I felt very good. I feel very good about my ability to see a person's answer and go, I know this person. This is a game that I think will scratch their itch.
I love it. My favorite mechanic in tabletop games, all joking aside, is friendship. I love games that just sort of require you to sit down with another person and probe that space between you that sort of comes up out of your joint creativity. So really, I'm really excited.
I'm super excited. This I've been thinking about this game since I read it, and I feel like I'm so hyped for it.
Nice.
So, we don't have to do any prep because a lot of the questions about where we are, when we are, all of those things are kind of baked into the questions. So really, we can just get going.
Let's do it.
Would you like to answer the first question, or should I?
Oh man, I'd love to go ahead and answer the first question, actually. Let's just jump right in. And we can answer these questions in any order, right?
Any order that is, there's any order, we can answer them, whichever way we want to.
I mean, I feel like there are easy picks to start with, and I'm not sure I want to go with any of those.
Okay.
But then there are others that I think will just kind of help build out the scene and the characters. So I think, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and start with the very first question, which is, what cool vehicle are we traveling in?
Okay.
Because I think that this will tell us sort of more about the people that we are and the kinds of things we might be pursuing. And really what I'm looking for is just this very evocative imagery. And I think it starts here. So, I'd love to pull a card for this one.
Okay, so you have drawn the bridge, a choke point, a shortcut, rope and wood haphazardly lashed, a stable connection, a thoroughfare, a mountain hollowed. So a little bit about the way that spindle wheel cards work is it's a card, there's an evocative design, there's a title, and there's some text. There's two different sort of text, two different ways the text can be taken, and you can kind of choose between those interpretations. You can combine them. For the listeners at home, I have a deck in front of me that I'm drawing cards from, just in case you hear where Alex asks for a card and I kind of read off the results. Yeah,
so I honestly think that as soon as you say bridge, there are more interpretive, dreamlike ways to spend this. But I think literally my first thought is just we're on the water. We're in some sort of a water chase.
Okay.
Because I think that a really cool sort of noir-y, underexplored situation here is not a jet ski. Maybe it's kind of a...
Can I throw out a suggestion? Because I'm very excited. Can it be a fan boat?
Oh my god, yes, it's absolutely a fan boat. It's kind of run down. It's not in very good condition. It is probably stolen, right?
I refuse to believe there are any good condition fan boats in the world.
There aren't. It's illegal. You get your license revoked if they catch you driving a fan boat that's too nice.
They're wait a second. I think they make them out of the factory looking kind of run down, honestly.
And then the card says haphazardly lashed, and that just sort of gives me this very interesting imagery of we basically cut this thing off of the dock and just ran with it. So it's definitely not ours. It is a fan boat, and it is in extremely questionable condition. And that tells me that wherever we're going, whatever we're doing, we didn't have time or options.
I love it. I love it a lot. So I think we could ask... I think my follow-up question could be, where are we going, but that feels like too easy. I don't want to necessarily go there yet.
Yeah, I'd like to take a little longer getting there, I think.
I think okay, I see the question that I want to ask. And it is, what do I doubt about the ethics of our task?
Ooh.
And the card that I have drawn is Ascetic Root, a potent sleep tonic when properly prepared, or stubborn roots anchored onto a cliff, reaching wide and winding deep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, I really like stubborn roots, things like wide and deep. I feel like wherever we're going, whatever we're doing, we have had to, like, rely on deep-rooted, like, long-lasting, like, the tendrils of not necessarily, like, people, but, like, organizations and power structures that are everywhere in, like, the plate, like, where we live and where we inhabit and where, like, we are going. Like, these power structures are everywhere.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And we have had to a certain extent, like, well, let me ask you. I'm going to throw out two options. Are we relying on these sort of power structures? Or is it that we are bucking up against, like, cultural norms or power structures that are so deeply entwined that it feels a little bit, maybe not hopeless or nihilistic, but a little bit like what the hell are we even doing?
I mean, I think, like, not to sort of cop out on giving you an answer, but I think it almost has to be both, right?
Okay.
Because, like, in order for us to be in a position where we have to be relying on these ascetic roots, like, I think we're desperate. And I think that whatever it is that we stand for or once stood for or want to believe we can someday stand for again, like, we're having to really kind of fly in the face of all of that and utilize some resources that we never thought we'd basically have to be in service to. And I think that, so it's like not just the deep roots of this system, it's our sort of questioning, like, our own roots and how we got to this situation and what it is that we're trying to accomplish here.
And I think the other thing that I want to throw into that is thinking about, like, a potent sleep tonic when properly prepared, this idea that, like, I think this is sort of forcing us to confront, like, how dangerous and deadly those structures, those societal norms, those, like, those very kind of comforting, accepted as normal things, like, we're sort of staring in the face of, like, the deadly undercurrents of all of that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's us going like, this can happen at any time. Like, anybody could, if they're put into a similar position, just go down this road.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think it's also this idea of, you know, this image of the sleeping potion when done properly makes me think that, you know, there's one way to make a sleeping potion with this and a million ways to make something much, much worse. So whatever we're doing, we have exactly one possible outcome that's good, and none of the rest of them are.
Yeah. Okay, what question do you want to answer next?
Ooh, boy. I think I'm going to go with, what landmark do we pass?
Oh, that's a good question.
I kind of have this space now of us being, like, in this very desperate vehicle and in these very desperate conditions, and I like the idea of us seeing some sort of visual metaphor of something, and so I'm really curious what that is. So if you could go ahead and tell me what our card is for this one.
Your card is the Goose Down, a soft place to land, a whisper just above silence, or a notable delay, a layer of numbness.
Huh, okay, that's interesting. I like layer of numbness. I like that imagery. What I'm kind of playing with in my brain space right now is this idea of maybe, I'm kind of returning to this idea of, you know, why ever we got into the business that we're in the first place and what that used to mean to us. And now we've sort of been in the system too long, or we've been in the world too long, and there's this jaded quality to the things that we're doing and the decisions we're having to make. And maybe being reminded of something that may or may not be able to sort of pierce that numbness that's grown over the initial causes that we had here. So I'm trying to figure out what that would be. And I think in order to sort of figure that out, I kind of want to know more about like who we are or who we were to begin with. Do you have any strong feelings on that?
So, one thing, like a visual picture of like a space, like along the same lines, I kind of like a visual pops out that kind of starts to inform that a little bit. It's going off of like a soft place to land, an idea that like we are basically tearing on a fan boat through, and I'm picturing like we're going, as fast as this fan boat can go. But like we're kind of passing through like remarkably pristine, like, photogenic, perfect world, nature spaces.
Can it be kind of foggy though?
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Like, it's really, really foggy, and I think that's kind of contributing to this, like, obscured nature, but also kind of this, like, soft, dreamlike quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea of these very, like, pristine, natural spaces. Like, this very beautiful sort of wetland that we don't get to see a lot. Maybe we're in Louisiana?
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, and we're kind of embroiled in whatever sort of seedy underbelly of the urban sprawl or what have you. And so now getting out into this space and pursuing these activities, but being reminded of sort of the flip side of this area that we live in a very sort of metaphorical way that, things don't have to be this way.
Yeah. Like, we're in a very complicated big city caper. And then it's just taking us through this space that is exactly like you said. It is everything that we could be experiencing and that we're not, because of like the choices that we've made and the sort of compromises that we've had to make to get where we are.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's easy to burn through these questions kind of quickly, so I kind of want to intentionally linger on this one just a little bit longer, if that's cool with you.
For sure.
I like this imagery a lot. I like this idea of us being out on the water and kind of getting into this very strange, liminal, wide open swamp area. But I kind of want to know more about like who we are as individuals, I guess, and maybe like the system that we're working within or against. I just kind of want like a vague aim, I think. Like we're trying to dismantle this operation or these morals or lack thereof, but that could still be a lot of different things.
So I'm picturing like a lot of what we've said kind of points me to, especially like throwing out, dismantling. I'm kind of the picture that I'm getting is kind of that maybe we are not chasing something, but like in the sense that maybe that like maybe our target is sort of a little stationary. It is, and it's got those deep roots, right? Like we're heading to someone to like have a big confrontation, right? Like we are. This is definitely. This is the final shootout scene in the action movie, right? Like we have.
Oh yeah, 100%.
We have been licking our wounds. We have lost everything, and it is like us taking this stolen fan boat and like coming through a back door essentially to be like, well, we're gonna have it out. Like, and the only kind of way to get back into that kind of urban sprawl environment that we were from is the only way that we can go where we're not going to be like directly seen.
Right.
Is to kind of take this back door through this very kind of pristine space. So I guess a question that's not on the sheet that I think is valid, is like a good thing to kind of throw out is, how did we know? Did one of us know that this space was here? Did one of us grow up in this space? How did our knowledge of this space, of this very natural thing, this kind of through line, where's our connection to that?
That's a good question. Maybe I'm always a big fan of the dynamic where like you set up these not binaries, but like these foils, right? And so I'm really liking the idea right now of having somebody who like is from this area, who grew up in it, who has this very naturalistic knowledge of the environment and the place, but also has like forgotten a lot of that because they've just been in it so long, versus this other person who maybe came here from somewhere else, or like grew up in an even bigger city and then relocated down here, and so they have like this expertise from elsewhere, but they're totally unaware of a lot of the resources and realities that exist in this space. So
yeah,
I think one of us is definitely from like the bayou, and I don't know where the other one would be from, but
I love a bigger city. It feels easy to go with like a New York, but I like the idea of it being you know where it is? I'm just throwing one out there. The other is from like a Silicon Valley or a Bay Area where it's like,
I love that.
Not just urban, it is like technical. You know what I mean?
Ooh, okay. Let me tell you why I love this.
All right.
I love this so much because I think that brings very much this sensation of like, and now I'm just sort of operating in this space where I'm assuming I think I'm the bayou dweller and I think you're the big city fella. But I love this idea that you bring with you this firsthand experience of what all of these huge, sprawling urban disasters can kind of be, but you don't really have a concept of how personal they can get. You know? Yeah. I think that you're used to seeing like just ridiculous amounts of crime and exploitation and like the horrible things that systems like this can wreak on their surroundings, but you are from a place with so very many people in it that it's hard to see those effects on a deeply personal level, especially because you're not from here. But for me, you know, if somebody, like if for example there is a big drug problem in an area, like I know exactly who the people are that are being affected by it. When I see people who have had horrible things happen to them in the street, like I know those people, I know those faces, and that's a very different kind of feeling.
And the thing that really jumps out to me, like as you know, I am really feeling the Silicon Valley tech guy, is the idea that like points of data are not a story. And like being from like, you know, the tech center of the world, so to speak, or you know, what our action movie has presented as the tech center of the world, like I could rattle off 10,000 points of data about any crime or crime scene in the world. But what I lack that you have is being able to be like, yeah, this person was this person. Like I can be like, okay, so this person had two cousins, three other family members, all of those are, and I can rattle off these connections, but I don't say like, yeah, they were cousins, they came up together, they went to school together. Like there's a life there that the data does not show.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So you know what I'm kind of thinking as we're going down this path, and I want to run it by you because if this isn't good for you or if we want to strike this from the game, I think now would be the time to do it. So I'm kind of feeling like maybe this is some sort of, in the world of whatever our movie or TV show pilot is, I feel like it's some kind of drug. Is that okay with you?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And I feel
appreciate
like
you checking in, but I'm all right with that.
I feel like it's probably some kind of like, you know, it's hit some of the bigger cities like a few years before now, and it hadn't really come to this area until very recently, and we don't have necessarily the medical infrastructure here to support the effects that this thing has, and it's kind of just rapidly devastated this community. And I think that you are probably here because you have some expertise dealing with this, like the actual drug itself and the situations that it tends to present, but obviously no idea how it manifests itself in a place like this. And I am used to seeing a lot of the kinds of things that have happened here before, and I've seen a lot of crises, but I haven't seen something like this happen to these people.
And so that tells me, like, that gives me a really clear picture going back to the question of, going back to the ethics, to the deeply rooted things, like the power structures, is, that tells me the fact that the drug trade hasn't, like, gotten here tells me that not only are, like, you know, family and, like, tradition and things all very important, but that there are also, like, probably deep running, like long established, like crime families, essentially, or like
Yeah.
a crime family, crime organizations that like have a vested interest in whatever like drug dealers or, you know, manufacturers or whoever is putting this drug in this place. There are power structures in place to be like, that's going to disrupt our business. And that,
Ooh, you know what? This actually could be. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
this
please,
could be one
please.
of. This could be one of two things. Actually, it could be that, and I do like that a lot. But it just occurred to me the Silicon Valley angle. This could be like a medical malpractice thing.
Oh, I love
This
that.
could be a drug that ostensibly has some sort of promised benefit, and just like a slew of horrible side effects or addiction.
I love that also because, like, then it gives a very clear picture of, like, I love the idea of, like, kind of, it's more of that, like, big city, small town contrast if the people that we're kind of going up against are, you know, testing like, are, like, testers and big city suits who are, like, doing this sort of on the sly thing of, like, this is going to be the world's greatest market test. We're going to prove the benefits of this drug, and they just have not considered it all the way through.
And I think it makes a very interesting nuance to our situation, which is that the people that we're trying to save probably don't think we're saving them.
Yeah. I love it. Good goddamn.
Okay, cool. I like this a lot.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready to move on to another question if you are.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I think it's your turn,
I think it is my turn. I want to ask, what shouldn't I have brought?
Ooh, okay.
What should I not have brought? Where is my deck? Which isn't it? Let's see. What did I... I have drawn the Keepers. Wandering monks speak truths that wound and knowledge that corrupts, or archivists quietly collecting gestures, stealing turns of phrase.
Okay.
Dang.
Truths that wound and knowledge that corrupts is like such a powerful set of words in the kind of scenario that we've crafted.
Yeah. Maybe it's that, like, maybe the thing that I should not have brought is... Oh, you know, I mean, this ties back into the idea, like, it you know what it is? Jang, it's exactly what you were just saying. It's that the people that we're saving don't think that we're saving them. So what I'm bringing is, like, all of these probably stolen, probably taken off of a henchman that we killed. Like, taking these, like, documents about, like, failed test studies, the horrible things that have happened, and just holding on to it and going, like, I'm going to expose this, but in doing so, I'm going to take hope away from a lot of people.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like,
Not to mention, I think these are things that probably exist in exactly one place, and now you have them on a fan boat headed directly to the one person who doesn't want them to get out.
Yep. And it's definitely, they exist in exactly that one place, which means that, like, and I think that we have not yet reached the point where those negative side effects are presenting themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, I am going to be the person that, like, reveals all of that. And to a certain extent, that means it's on me.
Wow. So here, this brings to me another interesting question, I guess, which is, do you think that that's been a point of contention or a point of, like, unspoken difficulty, not between the two of us necessarily, but between, like, both of us individually and the situation, is knowing that, like, one of us is not going to be welcome again. At least one of us is not going to be welcome in this town again after this news breaks. And I just think that's interesting.
Let me throw that back on you. How do you feel about that?
I think that that's a hard question for me. And I think that, you know, maybe prior to... Oh, yes, no, I know exactly how I feel about it. I think prior to arriving in this moment, in this very beautiful, serene, sort of, like, eerie wetland situation, I was almost at a point where I thought I was ready to be the one to jump on that proverbial grenade and do it, because I have grown up here my whole life, and despite some early fond memories, I think I've seen this place go in so many directions that just make me miserable. And I think that I have probably for several years now thought like I have to get out of here, or, there's nothing left for me here. And I think that thought has sort of been like echoing in my brain. And, these people don't appreciate the work that I'm doing. I've given my entire life to try to better this community, and nobody like even knows it. And I think I was definitely in this position where, maybe there have even been some moments where you have like sort of been taken in by some of the charms of this town, which I think it definitely still has. And so seeing that happen and me being like, you know what, here's somebody who has a chance to sort of see this place through fresh eyes, and whatever you're running away from in Silicon Valley, like you could get away from all of that here. And I don't want to ruin your chance at seeing the same things in this community that I used to see. And so I think I was very ready to be the one to make that decision. But I think that now, finding myself in this place where I suddenly am seeing like the most untouched sort of beauty and the cleanest possible slate, and remembering all of these things that this place was to me when I was growing up and all of the ways that it impacted me, I think I'm having second doubts.
Okay. I love it. I think I've kind of also I think I'm almost having the opposite experience where...
Yeah.
I think I'm troubled by the fact... I think I'm like really deep down, like I know this is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I know if we don't do it, it's going to hurt people. But I also am really feeling like, fucking, this should be my chance to be a hero. Like, this should be my big hero moment. And I'm going to get chased out of town on a rail.
Yeah.
Like, this is everything that I've given for this case, this job. And they're going to chase me out of town. They're going to throw me out. And there's probably a little resentment in that.
Do you think part of what's... Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
Do you think part of what might be maybe appealing to you about this town, or maybe has grown on you about this town, is that, you're from this place where you're one face in a crowd of thousands, and now suddenly, like seeing everybody. And while you're not used to that, like everybody sees you as well. People know you. And so there very much is this potential that like, if certain decisions were made differently, or if circumstances were even slightly other than what they are, like you could be this huge hometown hero now and be welcomed here and be totally set up for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's even a bargain that whoever we're going to deal with is going to try to offer you.
I love that. I absolutely, 100%. And what stands out to me about what you just said is that like, it's not that like I would be welcome. It's that I would be the hometown hero. And like, I think there's that feeling of like, which, is not the most heroic feeling, right? Is this feeling of like, it's not enough that I could save these people. It's that I want them to know that, to recognize me in doing so.
Right.
There's a little bit of a dangerous ego there.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Do you think that you're somebody who is from Silicon Valley or from a specific place in Silicon Valley? Or do you think you're somebody who, like, moved around a lot and never really put down these roots? That roots card was pulled pretty early, and that kind of, like, has been lingering with me.
Now that you say it, I think what jumps out to me is, I'm gonna hit you right back with, I think it has to be both. I think it's, I've lived in this city I've lived in like one big city my entire life. Mm-hmm. But, living in a city, that could mean living in 15 vastly different neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I don't think that, I think we grew up, we rented condos and we rented apartments. Like, I think I spent my pretty much entire childhood into adult life, like hopping from place to place, neighborhood to neighborhood. Probably school district to school district, like, and so, like, it just adds to that feeling of being a face in the crowd when it's like, yeah, I lived in one city my entire life, but I had 15 different lives.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's very interesting, and I think that's very sort of creating the kind of parallelism that I am clearly craving here.
I'm feeling it. Is it my card to flip or is it yours?
I think it's mine. I think you just flipped the what shouldn't you have brought.
You're right.
Are the other two questions in that grouping supposed to be answered at the same time, or are they individual questions that I can answer at any time?
Individual questions.
Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna say... Okay, I'm going to hit you with, what do you doubt about the practicalities, or what do I doubt about the practicalities of our task?
Okay.
And I already kind of know the answer to this, but I'd like to pull a card anyway. I want to see if it gives me any insight on what I'm thinking.
Okay. The artisan, master of none, governed by moods, blinded by an unattainable ideal.
Oh my god, yes, that's perfect.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so exactly what I was thinking about the practicality of what we're going to do is I know these people, and I know that we could do everything right tonight, and they just won't believe us.
Fuck.
I know that these are stubborn small-town folk who make up their mind about something, and when they trust all the way, and when they turn completely. And even if we play all our cards right tonight, even if we bring down every shred of evidence that we have, even if we corner these people in a place where they have literally no exit, like, what are we gonna do when the sheriff shows up and the sheriff doesn't like what he sees?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because this is a situation where these people have been promised something incredible, like something that, you said hope earlier, and like I think these people have been promised some sort of hope for the first time in a really long time. And even though we know better, even though we have every piece of evidence that we could possibly have on our side, it might not matter.
Dang. Frick. That's really good. Yeah, that kind of ties in really nicely to like why I brought like the hard data.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Like, we could tell them a million things and they might not believe us, but maybe there's a shadow of a chance that if we show them information from the very people that are promising to help them,
yeah,
maybe we can at least get them to turn on them as well.
I think there's something really kind of cool and maybe even unintentional there too, which is really fascinating to me, which is that it's not a jump drive, it's like piles of paper. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, if something's going to sway these people, I think it would be that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much more poetic that you have these, like, you, the Silicon Valley, whiz kid who came all the way out to this side of the country to take point on this extremely technological case. And what you have with you now is like a file folder that's like rapidly fluttering in the fan boat breeze. And this is everything.
Yeah, it's like half wrapped in saran wrap because I just grabbed it from the kitchen. And that's like how I'm trying to protect it from the water. I'm just like, this is going to have to do.
Oh man, I love that.
That's really good.
I'm such a sucker for, like, really nuanced and, like, heartfelt stories about people in small places who are being taken advantage of. Is that obvious?
You know what? I had not gathered that.
Oh, man. I'm a West Virginia kid. I was born and raised in West Virginia for, the first, 20 years of my life in the same house. And I was definitely not from, the part of West Virginia that most people are thinking of when they're thinking of West Virginia. I was from Morgantown. It's a big college town. But even so, when something hits there, it hits everyone and it hits hard. And this is a really cool story to be exploring.
Mm-hmm. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm feeling it real good.
Right on.
I gotta think about...
Yeah.
What a question do I want to ask? I'm gonna ask... Let's see. Real quick, I need to clear off what questions. So we've talked about the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And we did the landmark.
I'm gonna hit where we're going since we have a clear idea, but I really want to know the specific destination where this kind of
definitely
confrontation is happening.
I think it's time.
Yeah, I think earlier we wouldn't have had to clear a well, fuck.
What is it?
It's the card is titled Sheriff?
Oh my god! Are you serious?
Oh, wow.
Jeff, I wish so much I could have been in the room physically when you flipped that card over.
Wow. Fuck me.
Holy shit.
I don't even... The rest... Enforcer, Honor Guard, the Steel Grip of Martial Law. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Those words add so much to it at the same time.
There's so much weight there, yeah.
The Steel Grip of Martial Law.
Okay, but read the other side for me, too, because it's really interesting.
Peacekeeper, vigilante justice, law in the hand of the common folk. So, like... Okay, so what's happened here?
Oh, I have an idea for you. Can I run it by you?
Please.
What if the sheriff we're going to see isn't the current sheriff?
Okay.
What if there is a sheriff who was recently displaced because they had qualms about this thing that's going on here, and it was kind of this quiet ousting. Like, this sheriff is pretty old, had been in the job for a very long time, and it was not as hard as it should have been to turn people on them and get them out of that office kind of quietly. But we don't really know for sure if we can trust them or not, because I don't know that we're privy to all the things that made this power transfer happen.
Yep.
But I think they're the closest thing we think we can get to being on the side of the people.
I love it. That's so good. That's so absolutely good. And I want to, like, add some real tension to that, which is, like, you know, their power transfer happened. The sheriff stepped down. But, like, word has gotten out to, like, the medical corporation, right? Like, you know, the Silicon Valley app developers looking to disrupt the medical field. As word has gotten out that those documents have been stolen, and it's like, well, no one in this town is going to believe anyone except
yes,
Sheriff Hollyhammer.
That's good.
And so it's they're like there's the dawning realization that that's the only person that anyone in the town would listen to. So we are on a race against time to get there first.
Oh, because absolutely National Treasure style, like, we had that realization at the same time they did.
Yeah. And so it's just whoever gets there first, it's either we get there to a dead body, or we get there to the one person that can actually help us.
Wow.
And maybe has the firepower to, like, get us and this stuff out alive.
If we are even convinced that they will help us or will listen to us, which is still undecided. There is so much riding on this moment.
Fuck. This is good. I love this.
Oh, man. I love that a lot. What's your last name? I think we go by last names here.
That
just feels right to me in terms of the detective energy.
St. Clair. It's St. Clair.
That's pretty good. I like it. What immediately jumped to my mind for me is, like, Dubois. Which I think is good. I think I'm just going to stick with that. That's good.
St. Clair is he, his pronouns. I think that feels right.
Run that by me one more time. Sorry, my audio kind of cut
out. St. Clair is he, his pronouns.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I like it. What does Dubois use? I think Dubois is probably a she/her pronoun situation. Okay. Yeah, I like this a lot.
I love this. I am living for this.
So cool.
Okay, what's the next question?
The next question. Wow, I love that answer so much. Okay,
I'm so jazzed by that card draw. Like, I'm hype as hell.
Oh, it's so good. That took it in a totally different direction from what I was expecting, and it's so much better. I'm not ready to answer what my goal tonight is yet. Oh, shoot. I know what my question is. Okay. So earlier you answered, what shouldn't you have brought? Mm-hmm. I want to answer, how does it hurt me?
Okay.
Can you pull a card?
I sure can. That is arbalists, opportunists in the canopy, picking off the weak and abandoned, or stewards of the land who require sacrifice of blood and bond.
Oh my god. Ooh. Let me think about that real quick, because I kind of had, like, a vague idea of maybe where I would take this, and then that kind of started to confirm it and then took me in a totally different direction, so I have to think about it. My initial thought was that I knew somebody who was the subject of one of these papers. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that whatever had happened to them had happened to them until I saw these documents that you have. But
so I have a suggestion if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, sure.
It ties into the idea that, like, you are connected to these people and, like, you have these long histories. Like, you probably, like... What if you, like, take care of, maybe not, like, in a literal sense, but, like, in the way that, like, small town people look out for small town people?
Uh-huh.
Like, you have an interconnected web of people that depend on you and that you depend on. That, like, if we blow this thing up and it, you know, turns the town on its head, it turns people against each other. Like you were saying, like, there's names in that file that are trusted friends that the town will then turn on. Like, it disrupts this web of, like, people that you have come to consider family, whether or not they are your real family. It's going to, like, sever so many of those relationships.
Well, and I think that, yes, that's absolutely 100% true. And I think even on a level that I'm not willing to admit to myself yet, because I think, like, probably a part of my character arc has been coming to accept to myself that these people are more important to me than I want to admit, but also that I'm more important to them than I'm willing to admit. And I think a part of what hurts me about this file here is that, if the town turns on itself, that would be really dangerous for a lot of people. But also, if I get run out of town, there are a lot of people who aren't going to be taken care of anymore.
That's, like, that hurts.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's little things that people may not even realize I'm doing for them, or people may not realize that I'm doing for somebody that they care about. Because I think it's not big publicized stuff. You know, it's stuff like maybe I, cut somebody's lawn when they need it, when I notice it's getting overgrown, or maybe I pay up the overdue balance on somebody's medication or something. You know, it's like stuff that is not really like a huge gesture, but a really vital one. And people don't realize the extent to which that would affect everything. So if these people turn on me, like, it hurts me personally because I'm getting cut out of this community that has been a huge part of my life and my identity, but also, like, it leaves a pretty gaping Dubois-sized hole.
Mm-hmm. That's real good. And it's like, there's an element of, like, it's telling then that it's telling that I'm the one with the folder, right? Like, it implies there's almost a sense of hesitation and a sense of, it almost has to be me that has the folder because I'm the one that doesn't, that, like, there's a level of protective apathy there. There's a level of, like, I don't have these relationships, so I can be the one to pull this trigger.
To an extent, you still can look at these pages in this folder and think of them as data if you have to. Yeah. Whereas I can't do that.
And like, that to me is the buddy cop moment, right? It's where you have taught me to, like, you know, see this as not a case and as not just a puzzle to be solved. And I'm teaching you, like, but, like, those relationships are going to get people, like, that being tied to those relationships is going to get people hurt. And at a certain point, you have to be able to distance yourself, or else those people get hurt.
Right, and you have to be able to make calculated decisions in order to keep things running the way they are, right?
Yeah. That's so good.
That's heavy.
So good. I know. All right, I want to answer, I want to answer what I wish I could say to you.
Oh, okay.
I want to answer what I wish I could say to you. I got holy stricture, laws as esoteric as they are absolute, or warnings in fable, lessons in parable, history, and folklore. I think I want to tell you what we were just talking about. I want to tell you, like, I have changed the way that, like, I am pursuing this. I've changed the way that I am like, I see things. I've changed the way that I picture, like, that I relate to people by, like, being in this case with you. And by, like, doing this job has changed how I view, like, everyday, like, interactions. Like, I want to tell you that I get it. And, like, all of these stories that I have picked up over the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. And I just can't. Because Sorry, please.
I was going to say, did we have a huge fight about this just before we got on the boat?
Oh, we so did. We absolutely did.
When we found this folder, I think, you immediately jumped to, like, oh, well, you know, we have this in our hands. We have all the facts in front of us. Like, this is exactly what we can do with these things. And I think I probably yelled at you for that. Because I think, to me, it was probably very much like those aren't facts. Those are real people. Like, what you're holding there is somebody's life story. That's somebody's death sentence. Like, you are holding a cornerstone of this community in your hands, and you don't even realize it. And all I want to tell you is that I absolutely do, but it's like what we have to do, and I just can't find the words. Wow. I think really the only question I can follow that up with is what do you say instead? Because I really want to know the answer to that.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and dive in. I'll give you the card, and we'll go with what you said instead. What I said instead.
Cool, let's do it.
All right. Your card is Arachne. Bulbous-bodied, long-limbed, gossamer stale, stronger than steel. Or a quiet weaver, pride of the town. Odd gossip, outshone by marvelous deeds.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it?
It's real interesting that this is what I'm saying to you instead of, like, telling you how... Okay. I think I've got
something
strong. Unless you've got something. What are you thinking?
I'm kind of blank right now, so I would love to, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's kind of shitty of me, if I'm being honest.
Well, that's like exactly what serves this moment, though.
It's me kind of... Okay, here's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of telling you, like, how much being here has meant to me and, like, changed me, I'm kind of, like, picking at you a little bit. And I'm maybe kind of dragging out your hesitations around, like, I'm like, you know, using data facts, right? I'm sitting there, we're on the boat, or we're on the fan boat, and I'm just like, somebody's not going to refill that person's prescription. I mean, when you're gone. Oh my
God. Who's
going to mow that person's, like, and it's just me trying to, like, force you to open up to me in this moment after you've kind of shut me out by way of just dragging, and using the data that I value so much just to be like, well, this person's lawn gets cut every 3 days. I know they're not the one doing it.
Oh man, you know what's so interesting about that though? Is that even as you are, like, using this information to kind of drive that point home and use these data points that you know I hate, you're doing it in a way that is proving how much you've listened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're doing it in a way that is showing me, like, in the most backhanded and offensive way possible that, like, you know these people, that you see them.
That's real. Like, I didn't even consider that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very good.
Wow. That's really something else. I think that there is obviously, and I wasn't really sure what our dynamic was, but this is an interesting complication, which is that no matter which one of us sort of falls on this proverbial sword, like, we're both kind of in this place where I think we feel like we can't both stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably part of why we're so mad at each other, because I think I'm gonna miss you, like, really bad, no matter which way this goes.
Yeah, and it's that we have no reason to stay together.
Yeah.
Well, we're parting ways at the end of this.
Right, and that frustration that, like, you know, in the moments where I got to see you sort of being charmed by this community, not only did it help me fall back in love with the people that I care about, but it also maybe gave me this sort of mirage of hope that you would want to stay. And now it seems like even if you did want that, like even if I could convince myself that you wanted that and I can't because you're being the worst, then I would have to acknowledge that you can't. And that almost sucks worse. So
it sucks real bad.
Yeah, so that's a really, really hard moment. And what's so difficult about you saying these things to me instead is that you are kind of somehow managing to, like, reopen all of those wounds at once.
Yeah. It's really good.
Wow.
Yeah, and and it's that like, it's frustrating me because, like, I want to open up to you and be like, I want to stay. I want to stay so badly. Like, I see all of this. And the only way that I can do it is by just being an asshole.
Because this is a buddy cop movie and that's how emotional intimacy is shown, yeah.
That's our moment of emotional growth.
Oh my god, that's good. Wow. Okay, the next question is yours.
All right, I think I gotta ask. I think it's time I gotta ask what my goal tonight is.
Yeah, because now I really want to know.
I want to know, I specifically want to know what my goal is here.
And I think after you answer this, I think the obvious next choice is for me to answer mine, so... do you maybe want to pull two cards at the same time and interpret them, like, in conjunction with each other?
Sure. The first one is Siren, a strangled scream, a klaxon wailing in the fog, a message scrawled in blood, a warning unheeded, jagged senses mistaken for jagged stones mistaken for safe harbor. And the second one is the sea. Not a drop to drink, unfathomable distance, an abyss that light has never touched. The kiss of the surf against the shore, sunken treasures, nets full of fish.
Wow, it is so cool that these got pulled right next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So I know you pulled the Siren first and your question was first, and I think that it makes sense for that one to be your card. Something about the imagery of jagged stones mistaken for safe harbor is so evocative to me in this particular context.
I think I want to be heard. I think I want to be the hero. I want to be recognized as the hero because, like, I have been chasing after this for a long time.
Yeah.
And, like, I just need to know that, like, it has caused me to doubt, like, all of the things that I have learned, all of the skills that I have gained, my belief in the data, in the facts, in the ability of the facts to impact change. Like, I just need to know I am a klaxon wailing in the fog. I just need someone to hear it, you know, and that for this not to be a warning unheeded. I just need it. I need to it, and it's you know, I need to believe that doing the right thing can lead to the right result.
How many times in the course of your career have you done the right thing?
I think probably not many. Like, I've probably done, I guess there's two definitions of the right thing.
Right.
I've probably, you know, done what the book says is the right thing, what the data says is the right thing, what procedure says is the right thing. And every single time I've watched cases get buried in a filing cabinet.
Yeah. And
when I was able to divorce myself, when I was able to look at it as data, well, then I was doing the right thing every time. You know, those cases were getting put into the system and justice would be dealt as needed to be dealt. This is the first time that I've realized the physical cost of that. And I've realized, like, what it, like, the what it means to ordinary people when people just play by the rules and just follow what the book says. And it's just, well, fuck, like, I now see the hurt that causes, and it's...
Yeah, but you know what else I think is kind of beautiful? Is that we've focused a lot on, you know, having to see firsthand the results of, like, the pain that we're going to be causing here and the hope that we're going to be ripping away from people. But I think what you maybe have also taken away from this experience is that, you know, this is maybe the first opportunity you've had to see the good results of the things that you do up close. Like, you've met the people that you're trying to help. And I don't think that happens for you a lot.
No, I'm degrees removed.
Yeah. And that's really kind of a double-edged blade there.
Yeah. So what's your goal here?
Wow. Looking at the sea, that is so interesting. It's so interesting that we pulled like both these really strong, like watery images while we're here on our fan boat. I really like this not a drop to drink imagery. I really like this abyss that light has never touched. I think whatever this is, it's kind of a deeply emotional situation for me, but one that I've sort of submerged under a lot of layers. Like it's been sunken for quite some time. I think that really what I want out of tonight is... Oh my gosh, no, you know what it is?
What's that?
I think that what I really want tonight is I really want to just, like, have an honest conversation with you about the things that we've been through. I think that I am somebody who is surrounded by and exemplified by and, like, has grown up in and has made manifest so many, like, interpersonal connections, but I've done it in such a way that I am not, like, acknowledging any of them. I don't talk to any of the people that I help. I don't have like a personal connection. I am surrounded by a web of people who rely on each other to exist, and I don't talk to any of them.
Those vines just run deep. They run deep and run wide, and the world that you inhabit just exists. And
yeah, and it's always been this way, and we don't talk about it. It's just not done. And I think that I'm in this position and I'm surrounded by this like swirling maelstrom of all of these things that I feel so responsible for, but I have never had the language to express that. And so as much as I like hate you for pushing all these things off at a distance and for like quantifying all of these things, I think I envy the fact that you are able to so directly talk about things, because I think that that's just not part of the way that I was raised. I think it's just not part of the relationship that I have with myself or my community.
And like that makes what I'm doing, like that makes it kind of beautiful that like I'm like trying to drag it out of you, right? Like I'm like look, you're not going to talk, you've cut me off, you've thrown up the cold shoulder, and I'm like, no. I have paid attention. I have the data in front of me. I know what you're putting up here. And, like, I'm not going to let us drive in here without acknowledging that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And as mad at you as I am for presenting all of this in a way that I perceive as so cold, I can't really get over the fact that you are, like, seeing me in a way that so many people, I feel like, don't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to draw the next question?
Yeah, let me do that.
What the questions that we have left before we go into endgame are, how does the file folder help us? Who do you call? What regret do you talk about, and what don't you say?
Man, these are interesting. I'm of two minds here. I would love to answer the how does it help us question, because I would love to get like a little bit more hope injected into this situation.
Okay.
But I'm also kind of obsessed with the idea of you sitting here like pulling out these data points and trying to have this conversation with me and me calling somebody else.
I do love that. I deeply love that.
I kind of think it's great. So maybe that's what I do. Yeah. So I'm going to answer who do I call?
Okay. What you get. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Fortuity. A chance encounter, a lucky ticket, a second chance, a nasty surprise, an excessive gift, a foolish loan.
Ooh. Oh, no.
So who you gonna call, Dubois?
Do I want this to be a good thing or a bad thing, I think is the first question. I mean, nasty surprise just sounds so on brand, right? Like, for the kind of thing that we're doing right now. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, ticket taken literally does add a lot to the situation.
Yeah.
And it ties into the idea that you have made your peace with the fact that you are not staying here. Mm-hmm. If it's literally like you are just being like, I'm not fucking hanging around.
Yeah. That is interesting.
And I mean, that would be, and like, it ties into the idea of a nasty surprise in that it's like, I am here being like, no, like, this is like, trying to drag out like your relationship here, and you're like, plane ticket.
Okay, I like this. Here's what I think it is.
All right.
I think that there is a side character who we met earlier on who is, what do you call a bush pilot when they're flying out of the bayou? Like, is somebody who,
Like
runs
like a puddle skipper?
Yeah, like a puddle jumper pilot.
Yeah.
And somebody that we know basically who we have more reason to believe is on our side than a lot of others. Somebody who I go way back with. And I think I want this to be...
absolutely don't trust them because of their criminal record, and it was like the first...
Oh, absolutely not.
It was the first lesson in, like, you can't trust the data, where I'm like, we're talking to who?
Oh, here's the other reason you don't trust them. They speak primarily French.
Sure, absolutely.
And I speak French with them, and that drives you up a wall.
Yep.
And so I think I, like, pick up this phone that I have, and I think I dial this number, and I think that you are, like, you're mad because I've interrupted the conversation you are having at me, and I think then you hear me get on the phone and start speaking French, and you know exactly who it is. But I want there to be some, like, enough French to know that I am talking about one ticket. Yep. And you know that it's not for you.
Yep.
Like, I think there is some moment of, like, non pas moi. And you know exactly what's happening here. And it's like, in as much as I can make it clear that this conversation is not for you by literally having it in French, I'm also making it, like, I'm not trying to hide the fact that I'm saying what I'm saying.
That's real good. Yeah, and I'm just like... I kind of have to go quiet at that point. Like, I kind of just sit, and I'm like, oh, okay then. All right then. So I'm going to answer, why does this help us?
Okay, yeah.
Have I mentioned that I really like spindle wheel cards? Because
they're so great.
I keep having these moments. This is the quiet
What did
knife.
you pull? Oh!
A threat unspoken, a debt collected, a trap laid, an impulse unsuppressed, an instant, both decisive and incisive. I really love a trap laid.
That is good. That's the one that stood out to me too.
I think what it is like, you know what it is? We don't know for sure if there's anything incriminating in this.
Oh.
But the plan, I mean, we don't know for sure if the sheriff is going to help us. We don't really know if we don't know that there's anything incriminating in this. But the plan is to get them into a position where they clearly and decisively show their hand as not caring about this town and these people, to put their fates in the hand of the people.
Oh, I love that.
Which itself, like, what owns about that, and it just hit me what really owns about that, is 100% a plan that you only come up with if you know the people. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, that is St. Clair 100% being like, this is how we're gonna get them. And I think we don't come up with this plan until we're on the boat. Yeah. In fact, I think we didn't even really have time to read these files until we got on the boat. And so I think this act of you, like, reading them out loud at me and, like, commentating on them is
one, ostensibly, like you just actually reading the contents of this folder for the first time, because this is the only stretch of 20 uninterrupted minutes we've had since all of this started unraveling, but also, like, doing so in a way that is causing all of this tension. I love it.
I love it so much.
Yeah, that's really good.
So what question, which of the two questions, what regret do you talk about or what don't you say do you want to answer?
Oh, man. I think I'm going to say, what don't I say?
Okay.
Yeah.
The card is the Scholar, Scrivener, Documentarian, Insatiably Critical and Curious, or Overwhelmed and Underprepared, Dispassionate and Sleep-Deprived. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That one's speaking to me a little bit.
A little bit. You know what? Can we do one of my favorite tarot tricks, and can we pull another card to inform this card?
Yep.
I just like these cards. I want to use more of them.
We absolutely can do that.
And I just loved so much earlier when we pulled those other two cards next to each other.
Famine, Blighted Soil, Fallow Fields, Poisoned Rivers, an off-season, a reliance on reserves.
Oh, man.
I feel like we're just not in a great space.
We're definitely not. So, I mean, what's interesting about these is, like, the Scholar card. Like, I think if there was gonna be a card in here to describe how I feel about you, it would be that one, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, that's you. That's St. Clair. And pulling the Famine card along with that is kind of interesting to me, because I think that, you know, famine on the one hand, like, even just sort of ignoring the meta text on the card right now, famine does imply this sort of, like, hopelessness and this kind of, like, loss, this emptiness. Like, famine is a point at which you are so far past hunger that isn't even the same, like, experience anymore. You can't even describe it that way. It's something that's so much more desperate, but also so much more, like, foregone than that. By the time you're talking about famine, like, it's already done.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that it is something that does derive from, like, from hunger. And so, like, this hunger paired with this card that's about, like, insatiable curiosity. I don't know why those are informing each other in that way in my mind, but
that makes perfect sense.
There's something there about the relationship between those two cards. And I think that, like, I think in terms of things I'm not saying, like, I think I just want to know more about you. Like, I want to know why you are the way that you are, but not in the way that I know it would come across if I said it right now. Because I know right now if I said those words, if I looked at you right now and said, why are you the way that you are, it would be another fight. It would be me criticizing you because I know myself too well to think that it could come out of my mouth any other way. It would be me criticizing you for being this way, but I don't want you to think that the way that you are is an inherently bad thing. As much as I have acted like that, I think that the way that you are is phenomenal. I think the way that you are is really impressive. There's so much about you that has cracked this case wide open in a way that I never could on my own, and I can't say that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I cheated a little bit and I drew the card.
Okay.
For what regret do you talk about?
Uh-huh.
And I drew the Rat King.
Oh, the Rat King.
Which is fruit left to rot on the vine, a deadline missed. Or the phrasing on here that I think stands out to me.
Uh-huh.
Is abandoning a sinking ship.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I think that the thing that you're probably talking about is, like, the thing you probably start the conversation on, like, I'm buying a plane ticket. Mm-hmm. I have to, like, flag you down as we're taking on water.
Oh my god.
Like, oh my god. Hold on, let me get out I have to, like, get out my phone for a minute and, like, you know, go to translate and be like, okay, hold on, I gotta click the French button, cause, aidez-moi, yeah. You're like,
oh my God.
no. And so we have to literally, like, plan. It becomes planning, like, instead of planning, like, your way out of town, it becomes planning, we need you to get the plane here in 20 minutes because we can't leave the sheriff. Like, we need to get away with the sheriff.
Yeah. Oh, which is so interesting because it is ostensibly a crisis. It is this moment of, you know, we are in a sinking ship. We will not be able to get back out the way we came in. But also in a kind of very providential way, it prevents me from avoiding this conversation.
Yep.
And I love that.
I love it a lot.
I also love the idea that we have hard paper copies of the thing our entire plan relies on and our boat is taking on water.
Yep. So that's all of our questions.
That's our last one, huh?
We have four questions left. We now answer what the task we're heading towards, whether we accomplish our goals, and do we achieve our task.
Whew. I mean, it makes sense to answer these in linear order, which of course means that my brain immediately is looking for a way to not do that. Sure. I don't know if that's just me trying to be weird, or if there is some value in exploring them in a non-chronological way.
I kind of want to know if we achieve our task first and foremost.
Yeah. Does it make sense to clarify our task a little bit more before that happens?
You know what? No, I actually know the out-of-order, which is to do this.
Okay.
I think it actually is, since our goals here are very clearly tied to the trip, and they're not tied to, like, the actual confrontation, it probably makes more sense to, like, to answer those first.
Oh my God, you're so right. We need to figure out if we accomplish our goals, because that's what's going to inform the really satisfying, like, character moments and the, like, action sequence and everything in a very literal manner for us to wrap up this, like, situation we've come up with. So yeah, I think that makes sense to me. So I'll go first in terms of if I accomplish my goal.
All right. Your card is the Fool. Close-minded and stubborn, faith-born of spite, or wide-eyed and open-hearted, unfettered by cynicism or context.
Well, that's certainly interesting, isn't it?
Two very distinct options.
Wow.
This really is a card of, do you do it or not?
No, you know what? I think what this card implies to me, actually, is that I think very clearly yes. You know, because this is exactly what we would say to each other when we finally have that conversation. Because it'll start out very heated, right? I think this card to me implies that we have this, you know, and maybe it's while we are actively bailing water out of our boat, trying to prolong our way to this space that we are arriving at, this, like, horrible uncertainty ahead of us. And I think something about the combination of this just became even more hopeless than it already was, and the utter absurdity of this moment, and, like, just all of that, and the rising tension, and the fact that, like, this is maybe more pressure than any one human being is supposed to bear in a given moment, trapped in a fan boat with somebody who's driving them up a wall. And I think that those walls that we are both so stubbornly trying to keep up just come crumbling down. And we are, like, yelling at each other while we are bailing out this boat. And it's one of those scenes where absolutely they're, like, what you intend as an insult really just comes out much more as, like, an admission of admiration. And it is, it just devolves from there. But I think that absolutely I accomplished my goal tonight. I think that because of the insurmountable pressure here, I think we're both able to say the things that we need to say.
Yeah. Fuck. I just drew my card for my goal. Leviathan. Scale beyond reference, ambition outside of reason, servant to nothing, a mindless hunger, a tireless machine, crude oil burning in seawater.
Wow. I
don't think that I accomplished my goal here in terms of, like, big picture. I think that, like, I think as we're having out this debate, like, I think part of what starts it, like, what starts me kind of, what starts, like, the screaming starts out with me being like, nothing's gonna matter. Like, we're losing, like, this is probably the first half of, like, our argument. Now we're even going further out of order because we're having the argument out of order.
No, I love it.
It starts out with me completely abandoning, like, no one's gonna listen. No one's gonna accept this. This was, like, we're dead. We're gonna die out in the middle of nowhere in this boggy water, and, like, no one's gonna hear what we have to say. No one's gonna hear anything that we're going for. And you have to kind of pull me back from that because you have a faith born out of spite. And that's when we kind of have it out, and and that's when we have it out and we finally, like, have our heart to heart. But it's completely born out of me just kind of in the lowest moment throwing up my hands and saying, like, I can't do this. We can't stop. We can't save these people.
Well, and in terms of just this, like, Leviathan imagery, I think what stands out to me immediately is this idea of something just so much bigger than you. And I think that maybe, if I can make a suggestion,
Please.
Part of what causes this breakdown is this idea that even if against all odds we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here tonight, it does not matter because these people are everywhere. Like, we might save this little bayou town, but we're not gonna save the 6 million other people being taken advantage of by this company.
Yep.
And I think that maybe, like, that is even the seed of this thing that starts this frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And just starting thinking in terms of this scale and, like, we can't save everybody. And then coming to this realization that, like, no, we can't, but
we can save these people right now.
We can save these people, yeah, and no one else is going to.
Okay. Alex, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
For the task that we are accomplishing.
Uh-huh.
Could you read me the moon card?
Oh my god, yeah, I would love to. So the moon is a solar eclipse, a complete and rapid transformation, a harvest moon, dark machinations illuminated.
So next question, like, I don't really feel like that, we got it.
That's it, that's done, that's the game.
Like, yeah, it's absolutely, like, and so I think that, like, I think that's probably when, like, so as we're sinking, we're throwing water, we're crashing onto the docks, that's when we have the aha moment of, like, we don't even have evidence. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Get him to just confess?
Yes.
And that's when we know, like, that's the plan.
Oh, that's so good.
And then our last card is, do we accomplish it?
Wow.
The Prince of Fate. Deposed and exiled, titles revoked, respect rescinded, last of a legacy, blessed by birthright, cursed by prophecy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Deposed and exiled is not encouraging.
Well, here's what I mean, if you have thoughts, I want to hear them, but I feel like this could apply to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
In a way of, like, respect is rescinded. Like, we are, respect is rescinded, cursed by prophecy. Yeah, we're chased. Like, yeah, we lose. That's a fight that we lose. But deposed and exiled, titles revoked. That sheriff is, the sheriff is the sheriff that was placed in by the corporation is deposed, or his title's revoked.
Yeah.
The corporation is deposed and exiled, but in terms of respect and the prophecy that we predicted, I think it ends exactly the way that we thought it was going to end. And that hurts.
That hurts bad. Yeah.
So I guess my last question for you is, does Dubois still leave with one ticket on her own?
I have loved lingering in these really hard spaces. I've loved making these really difficult choices and exploring these really painful circumstances. But I think tonight I need a happy ending. And so I think what I'm going to propose to you is I think that we both leave. But I think that we both leave with the knowledge that the revelations we've made here have not only gotten rid of what was no doubt going to be a really toxic influence on this town, but because of the way in which we revealed them and the way in which we chose to bring these to light by putting that justice back in the hands of the people it belonged to, we've left this community stronger than we found it. And even though you won't get to stay here and be a hero, and even though I won't get to stay here and personally take care of these people, they will have heroes and they will be taken care of. I think that as, you know, maybe as we're both sort of climbing into our plane and we get a last lingering look before I manage to pull myself in the door, I think we see the old sheriff sort of being, you know, heartily clapped on the shoulder and escorted back to his old office. And I think we see maybe two people who were fighting earlier, like one of them is now very protectively, like, has the other person's wheelchair, like, in a very solid grasp. And I think that maybe, like, we're left with some very strong visual cues that these people are going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think the closing line is, as Marcel takes off in the puddle jumper, I think I just kind of clap you on the shoulder and I'm like, you ever been to LA? You're gonna love it. It's just a different kind of swamp. You're gonna love it.
I love that. Yeah. That's
and that's
good.
our closing credits, and that's game.
Wow.
Right? Dang.
Oh boy.
That was really good.
That was a full 90-minute movie there.
I feel good. I feel real good about that one.
I do too. Thank you so much for sharing this with me.
Thank you for coming on the show with me. This was a blast.
I had a really, really good time.
Well, thank you for playing. Real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Coffee Detective, but it's actually COFF33 Detective, DETECTIVE. Or you can just go to therealalexflanigan.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a treasured experience. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Alex for coming onto the show. That game was breathtaking. It was astoundingly good. Be sure to follow Alex on Twitter at Coffee Detective, that's COFF33 Detective, and be sure to check the show notes for more information about In the Air Tonight. It's a great game, and I really think you should pick it up. Then, while you're on Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/PartyOfOnePodcast, join our Discord community at bit.ly/PartyOfOneDiscord, talk to us about Gritty and wrestling and the show and all the other cool things that we want to talk about. If you want to support the show, there's a bunch of ways you can do that. You can give us a nice review on iTunes, Podchaser, Podbean, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It probably has a rate and review function. Those help new listeners find the show, which helps us do bigger, better, cooler things. You can also give us some love on social media, tell a friend about the show, anything to kind of just share the fact that you enjoy this show. It means a lot to me on a personal level. You can also financially support the show at patreon.com/JeffStormer, coffee.com/JeffStormer, or paypal.me/JeffJStormer. Any of those help support not just the podcast that I do, but the games I design, the community support stuff, all that kind of stuff. Financial support directly makes all of those things possible. Another way that you can support the work that I do is by listening to the other podcast I produce, All My Fantasy Children. All My Fantasy Children is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano Size and I take a listener-submitted prompt. We spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday at allmyfantasychildren.com. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran, featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about press inquiries, advertising rates, guest appearances, or you just want to check in and see how I'm doing, you can reach me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And that's it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance, and as always, party on, everybody.